on the cross. This is why when we say, okay, this is the most attested to event from antiquity and in history, this is why. Okay, Kel, I see somebody is holding. Can you come up on the mic, Kel? Unmuted. See he's holding, and I don't know who this is. So I have, well, I'll just, go ahead.
Hello.
Last three numbers of your phone number are 470. Who am I talking to?
Hello, my name is Kenny Bomer. My Muslim name is Mujahid Islam, and thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
Can you hear me clearly?
Hold on. What was your name again? I can hear. Did you say your name again slower? I didn't quite understand what it was.
Okay, my name is Kenny. Last name Bomer. That's my given name. My Muslim name is Mujahid Islam. I am a Muslim. I'm a revert of over 30 years. The president of the Brazos Islamic Society and the author of the book Consider Islam. And so I just wanted to call in and talk to you about a couple of things regarding this topic and a couple of other issues.
Were you the guy from Texas? Hold on. Let's have a discussion here. Are you the one that was from Texas?
I am from Texas, indeed.
Yeah, because my Facebook friend Stephanie said that you might be calling. I appreciate you calling. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I'm calling. She kept urging me to call. I've never listened to your program before. I've never, I'm not familiar with you. No offense, but I'm sure you're not familiar with me either. But yeah, she kept trying to get me to call, and so here I am. I was actually on another program for over 3 hours a little while ago. I just been off for maybe 45 minutes or so. So I'm a bit tired. I've got other things I need to do today, but I did want to call and address a couple of things because she was so adamant about my calling. So so I do want to start by saying I bear witness there's no God other than Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, is his final servant and seal of all prophets. La ilaha illallah wa shahadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. I noticed that you call yourself a kafir, and I'm curious as to why you call yourself that.
I call myself a what?
A kafir.
A kafir?
Yeah, a kafir.
Well, I don't call myself a kafir. Muslims call me a kafir.
When do they call you that?
Am I not a kafir? Am I a kafir?
No, you're not a kafir. Do you know what the word kafir? You know what that means? The kafir. So I take it you're Christian. Is that correct?
Of course. Yes.
Okay, so you're Christian. So that means you're a believer. You're a believer in. You're one of the three monotheistic religions of Abraham, and so therefore you're a believer. It's just that your version of our God, our Creator, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, is different. You see Him as three in one. Of course, I come from a Christian background, but
let me just tell you why I call myself this.
Sure.
Number one, there are several different definitions of a kafir. If you get on to dictionary.com or any other public website there, and one of them is a kafir is someone who does not heed the beliefs and prescriptions held by the religion of Islam, and that's why I use that.
Well, that's in the Arabic language. That the word kafir does not mean that at all in all actuality. So that the word kafir is what people try to ascribe to the word infidels, which are non-believers, but that's not the Christians and the Jews. So if you're a Christian, you're not a kafir. So you're calling yourself that. I noticed you said you call yourself that. If Muslims are calling you that, I'd like to talk to them about that, because they're calling you that unjustly, because you're not a kafir. You are a believer in a God, a creator. The word kafir means one who does not believe in a creator. It does not believe in God whatsoever. So not even Hindus, people that are Hindu, they're not kafirs either. They believe in multiple gods. They do believe in Allah. They do believe that there's one God that's greater than the others, but of course they have hundreds of different gods. But the fact is that you're not a kafir. I don't know why you're calling yourself that. You should stop calling yourself that, because you're not one. So I just wanted to point that out to you, because I think it's and if you come across Muslims that are calling you that, please direct them to me. I'm easy to find. Kenny Bomer, Mujahid Islam, author of the book Consider Islam. That's still in the works. It should be hitting publication soon, but yeah, you're not a kafir. So if someone's calling you that, they're calling you that unjustly. I think primarily you're calling yourself that for some strange reason. So I just wanted to point that out to you. Uh, so if unless you have some other questions, we can talk about Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, if you'd like, briefly. I noticed that you were trying to suggest that only the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, claims that Jesus, Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, was not crucified. But for one, the Quran is not the words of Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. The Quran is the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our God, our creator. But despite that, there's other sources that in Christendom, in early Christendom, that make these very same claims. And so if you notice that the verse that you were referring to, that you seem to be very adamant about, is it states that it says that they said in boast, we killed Jesus, the son of Mary, the apostle of Allah, but they killed him not, nor did they crucify him, but it was made to appear to them, and those who differ therein are full of doubts and of no certain knowledge, but only conjecture to follow. For a surety they killed him not. And so what this is referring to is not referring to the Muslims that are making these claims. It's referencing the early Christians that held these same beliefs, that they disputed with one another about whether or not Jesus was crucified. And I think you're overlooking that fact. I don't know if you're one of the programs
Can
that.
I ask you a question about
Sure,
this verse?
sure.
Can I ask you a question about this? Because it says that because of their sayings, we slew the Messiah.
Right.
Can you point to which Jewish sect called Jesus the Messiah? Can you tell me which one that was?
Okay, so in mocking, they said that Jesus was the King of the Jews, correct? And so they placed a sign on his head. So the Jews, the Jews and the Romans, right?
The Romans said that
right,
King of the Jews.
right. The Romans.
Hold on a second. Back up. Hold on.
Right. I just clarified myself.
Just a second.
I clarified myself about that. I did say the Romans. Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, go ahead.
Okay, well, so mockingly, the Romans placed the sign above the head of Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him. But the Romans were working on behalf of the Jews who went to the Romans to request that they do something about Jesus alayhi salatu wasalam. And so mockingly and indirectly, vicariously, the Jews were supposedly responsible for the death of Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, Jesus, the son of Mary. Okay, and so it's saying that
I would agree with that. I would agree that they were responsible for it because they had the Romans carry out the crucifixion.
Right.
But I'm still getting back to the point where if this is Allah speaking, and he says that the Jews, it says then because of their saying, speaking of the Jews, we slew the Messiah. There's no Jew on this earth that would call Jesus the Messiah.
Well, it's just a reference.
Allah say something like this if it's not true.
Okay, so for one, it's expounding upon the fact that Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, Jesus, is the Messiah, and we as Muslims believe that Jesus is the Messiah. So it's not saying that the Jews said and called him Messiah, but it's addressing us, saying that they said in boast that they killed Jesus, the Messiah, the son of Mary, right? So that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our God, our creator. That's our God, our creator, telling us that they're claiming that they slew my Messiah. Okay, so it's not saying, it never says in there in any of those words. That's conjecture. You're reading more into it than what's there. It's not suggesting that the Jews were calling him the Messiah. It's just saying that Jesus is the Messiah. Jesus, they're saying that they slew Jesus, the son of Mary, the Messiah. So if that clarifies what you.
Slew the Messiah. It says the Messiah. We slew the Messiah.
Right.
No Jew on this planet would say Jesus was the Messiah. That's what differentiates them from Christians.
Okay. Well, the verse doesn't say they slew.
Okay, I'm just quibbling on this point, but okay. What I am interested in is, okay, you said that there were Christians, early Christians, that believed that Jesus was not crucified on the cross. Now, I'm sure you can point to all kinds of different sects, or not all kinds, but a couple sects that that were part of Gnosticism, where they believe that, well, Jesus didn't even have a body or something like that. But what we're doing, what we're trying to get across here is that this is Allah speaking about Christians. He would be talking about Christianity in its entirety and what was taught at the time of Muhammad, not what was taught in the, 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 2nd centuries at the time of Muhammad, because what they had at that time was the Bible. And the Bible that they had in the 7th century when Muhammad was alive is the same exact Bible that we have today. So Muhammad would be referring to that Bible, not some sect out in the middle of the desert,
Okay.
but mainline Christianity.
Okay, so for one,
okay, I want to hear this answer.
Okay.
I really do. I'm going to give you plenty of time. Go ahead.
Sure. So for one, you have to define what Bible you're speaking about. There's over 2,200 different versions of the Bible, and I'm not talking about translations. There's over 2,200 different versions of the Bible that exist in this world today. So therefore,
every single one says that Jesus died.
Okay,
on
so there's versions of the Bible that have 73 books. There's some that have 66 books. There's some that have 88 books. So it depends on what version of the Bible that you're speaking about. But that's a side issue.
I'm pointing out that all of them say that Jesus died on a cross.
Okay,
that's what all of them do say, though. He did die on a cross. I mean,
okay.
That's the central tenet of Christianity.
Okay, but that's somewhat of a red herring because we're getting off topic in regards to that. What we needed to discuss is the early sects of Christendom that had each one of these issues that you brought up. There's sects in early Christendom, the early Christians, that believed each of these things that you brought up about Muslims, okay? And so where do we get this information? We got this information from Christianity itself. So the issue lies within Christianity and not in these verses saying that the Jews claim that they killed Jesus, the Son of Mary.
That's not true. I cited several sources outside of the Bible that say that Jesus died on a cross. I did cite several of those.
Right.
Roman governors, Tacitus, Pliny.
Right.
I was going to cite Pliny. You have Flavius Josephus. You have Lucian. I mean, you have all kinds of references from outside the Bible that say Jesus did die on a cross.
Okay, right. You misunderstood what I said. Okay, so you're giving references to the people that and the sources that say that Jesus did die on the cross. But what I'm trying to point out to you is the fact that you're overlooking, or maybe you're unaware, most Christians are unaware of the early Christians, the early sects of Christendom, the earliest followers of Jesus, peace and blessing be upon them, that had varying beliefs about his crucifixion and his death. And that's the point that I'm trying to make to you. So instead of making this always an issue about Islam, I don't know about your program. I don't know what you focus on. But if you're a Christian, you should be trying to share the beauty of Christianity, just like as a Muslim, I try to share the beauty of Islam and never try to attack Christianity. Yes, I will. But so I don't know what your intentions behind your program are, because I'm not familiar with your program. But as a Christian, it'd be more constructive for you to share Christianity than it is to attack another religion. In Islam, the Quran tells us in the Quran to invite to the way of your Lord with wisdom and kind words, and to be never oppress anyone, and to be courteous to people. And there's no compulsion in religion, so let them think what they want to think, and we'll think what we want to think, and we should all still be able to function in society with no ill feelings towards one another. So in regards to addressing these early Christians, I absolutely.
Can I just address something that you just said? Can I address something that you just said?
Well, sure you can.
Now I realize, and you're giving good dawah. I mean, you're a very well-spoken apologist, and I grant that to you. But you just quoted a verse from what was written in the Medina verses that to you your religion and to me mine. But when we look at what was written, the Meccan verses, part of Meccan verse. But when you look at the verses in Medina, you see something completely different. So it is not a religion where you're not compelled. Look at 929, where if you do not convert, you have three choices: you die, you pay the jizya, or you convert. I mean, there's nothing else there, and we find that in the Pack of Bomer.
Okay, so once again, that's.
I just want to know what the source is that you have for the earliest Christians saying that Jesus did not die on a cross.
Okay, so let me just briefly address the issues that you brought up, because there's somewhat of red herrings in the fact that you've attempted to divert the topic here, because each one of those issues that you brought up can be very, very easily, extremely easy to explain. And, so in order to stay on topic, I would like to address these early Christians. I have no intention of being on here for extensive period of time, because once again, I just got off a different radio program that I was on for over 3 hours. So I got other things that I need to do today, inshallah, God willing. So in order to address your issues regarding the early Christians, I want to point out that the fact that this controversy existed long before the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, long before, and so one of the sects were the Basilidians, and they believed that someone else was substituted for Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, on the cross. And the Ducati.
Where was the sect at, and when they lived? Can you tell me where they were and when they lived?
You have to look at. I don't have the information with me right now, but it's the Basilidians. And if you have the internet right there at your fingertips, I can give you the spelling, and you could look that group up. Basilidians. Okay, sure. And I encourage anyone who's listening to do the same thing. In Islam, we're encouraged to ponder, to think, and reflect, and always to seek knowledge. Read and recite in the name of your Lord. Always seek knowledge. And so I encourage your listeners to do just that, to look up these early sects of Christendom, and you'll see that that this controversy about the crucifixion of Jesus extends from there. And it's just Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our God, our creator, expounding.
That was just one sect that you didn't.
No, yeah, that's just one sect.
And you didn't tell me where they were or when they lived.
Okay.
I would like to know others.
Okay, yeah, we'll address that, but make sure you write down Basilidians, Basilidians, Basilidians. And once again, they believe that someone else was substituted for Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him. And so the next group would be.
When and where did they live?
You have the internet right there at your fingertips. I'm sorry I don't have that information for you right this second, but it's easy to access. You can surely verify anything that I'm saying, and with the information highway right there at your fingertips. Basilidians. Once again, I just came on briefly. I wasn't coming on to debate with you. If I'm coming on to debate, if you'd like to do that at some point, we can surely do that, and I will be assured to have.
I appreciate you coming on. I'm just
Well,
making these statements, and I'm just trying to know where you're getting information from, because it contradicts all of the first century writers of the gospel accounts, and it was contradicting all of the scholarship.
Yeah, I know it, and that's where the problem.
I'm sure you've heard of Bart Earth and you know who Bart Earth is.
Oh, absolutely. He's the scholar that one of the scholars that I follow routinely. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Both of these guys are probably your most liberal scholars that you could probably have, and both of them say that the death of Jesus on a cross is the most attested historical event. Yes,
I realize that. But what's being overlooked there in a statement such as that? They're talking about, if you notice when Bart Ehrman is talking, he's talking about the earliest manuscripts, right? Not the original manuscripts, because those no longer exist, but he's talking about the earliest manuscripts. And in those earliest manuscripts that exist, the ones that exist, the crucifixion of Jesus is there. And so based on that, based on those manuscripts, they come to their conclusion, but that doesn't set aside the fact.
That's how scholarship is done. That's how history is done. We look at the earliest forms of manuscripts.
Right, but that's not the totality.
And let's not kid ourselves. He's not also talking about those earliest manuscripts. He's also talking about all of the extra biblical sources that cite this event.
Okay, so if you
asking you who the other.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And so in considering that, the earliest manuscripts aren't the totality of the story, because for one, those manuscripts are excluding some things that I'm going to reference here. So once again, make sure you write down Basilidians, pardon my pronunciation of that, Basilidians, who believe once again that someone else was substituted for Jesus on the cross. The next group would be the Ducati, and they believe that the crucifixion of Jesus wasn't real at all. They don't believe in the crucifixion at all. That's one of the other earliest Christian groups. Marcionites, around AC 138, they denied that Jesus was even born, and said that he merely appeared in a human form, that he was never actually born of a woman.
Did you give it? What was the date that you just gave? What was the date you just gave?
About 138 AC. Marcionites, Marcionite, the Marcionite gospel.
Ah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, I remember reading about it. I had a church history class that I took, and I remember they're of course they're considered a heretical cult. But yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but nevertheless, they're part of the history of Christianity, and once again, it demonstrates that these varying beliefs amongst the early Christians, and it makes this verse here that's been revealed. It makes it very point blank and very clear. It says that, but they killed him not, nor did they crucify him. Of course, that's open to you can believe that, or you don't have to believe that. As a Muslim, I don't believe that Jesus, peace and blessing be upon him, was killed or crucified, but you're welcome to believe it what you like. But it said it was made to appear to them, and then the key words here are, it says, and those who differ therein are full of doubts, with no certain knowledge, but only conjecture to follow. And that's referencing these Christian groups, these early Christian groups, and even Christians today who dispute with one another, which generates 34,000 different Christian denominations in the world, because there's so many different beliefs. And it's saying that those who differ therein, meaning the Christians, the early Christians, who some say that he didn't even exist at all, wasn't born of a virgin, that he just simply appeared in the form of a man as a spirit. Some say he did not die on the cross. Some say that someone else was substituted for him, and on down the line. All these things are generated from early Christendom, and our God, our Creator, who knows mankind, he's the creator of mankind. He's the one that's just simply revealing these facts to us that we can go back and ponder and think on and look up this information and verify it. And so that's what we're doing here. So there's many other sects that were exterminated.
You referenced 100 and what was it? How many thousand different groups? Denominations
throughout the world.
How many did you reference?
Throughout the world, there's over 34,000 different Christian sects or denominations. And I know that sounds like wow, that's overwhelming. 34,000, not 3,400.
Okay, 34,000 Christian denominations throughout the world. Okay.
Absolutely.
How many of those denominations denied Jesus died on a cross?
That's neither here nor there. That's not the topic that we're talking about right now. What we're talking about is the early Christians. I can't give you
numbers though to make your argument, which is
no, sir, I'm not. No, sir, I'm not.
No,
no, sir, I'm not.
You're saying that they don't believe that Jesus died on the cross.
No, I didn't. I can't tell you. Think. Okay, let me clear.
That believe all kinds of different things.
Okay.
My point is that in order to be a Christian denomination, you have to believe that Jesus died on the cross.
Okay, so let me clarify something. Let me clarify something. In your frustration, I think you're reading things into my statements that don't exist. Okay, for one, with my stating that there's 34,000 different Christian denominations in the world, that's something that you can absolutely verify for yourself. In saying that, how do you expect me? Right. And so so let me ask you this in regards to that. How would you expect me to be able to answer to you about 34,000 different denominations and what they individually believe? I cannot do so. You're asking me a question that is impossible for me to answer. I can't tell you what 34,000 different groups of people believe, but I can tell you based on what the topic of discussion is. I can tell you what these early Christians believe, and that's what I'd like to focus on here. Because if you study early,
I just want to walk this back just a second. I just want to walk it back just a second. Now, okay, you're saying that there's 34,000 Christian denominations, and that's great. Okay, I'm not doubting that number for a second. But what makes someone a denomination? What makes somebody a Christian denomination? What belief do you have to be in order to be considered a Christian denomination?
Brother, I don't know how the Pew Research Center comes up with that. How they deduce who is or what constitutes as a denomination, but that's the findings that they've come across. So groups can be extremely small, and can be of just a few people, and they have a particular belief, and that can constitute being a sect of something or another. So I can't tell you.
Can I tell you what a denomination is? Can I tell you what a Christian denomination is? A Christian denomination would be first and foremost defined by Christianity, and that is the belief that Jesus died on a cross.
Okay, let me point something out to you.
That is all. Let me point. Denomination. That is all your Christian denominations. That Jesus died on a cross. I mean, that's the tenet.
Yeah.
That's the central tenet of the Christian belief.
Yeah, and I'm not.
Deity and resurrection.
Right. Once again, I think you're chasing a straw man, because I'm not arguing that. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying what Christian groups do believe this, or what Christian groups do not believe that. That's not my argument. That's not the purpose of the information that I'm giving you. What I'm trying to point out is that this issue about whether or not Jesus, peace and blessing be upon him, died on the cross stems from Christianity itself, not from the Qur'an, not from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It extends from the issues within Christianity itself. Let me give you an example. There's some denominations that believed in once saved, always saved, and some groups that absolutely do not believe that. There's some groups that believe that that baptism is necessary, and some groups that believe that baptism certainly is not necessary. There's some groups that fall under the title of Christians or Christendom, or they fall into that category, that worship Mary in regards to the fact that they pray to her. I know that's Catholics, but they pray to her. And, so there's a wide variety of beliefs within Christendom. And so that's not my,
I agree completely with you.
So that's,
I'm not denying that at all.
Yeah, so
we have all kinds of different denominational beliefs. Like I grew up, I'm going to just give you a great example of this. I grew up Lutheran. Well, now I'm a Baptist. Well, when I changed to the Baptist denomination, one of the 34,000 Christian denominations, as a Lutheran, I was baptized as an infant.
Right.
Well, the Baptists say, well, you were baptized as an infant, but that's not believer's baptism. So there's all kinds of different belief systems within the faith itself. But the main focus of the faith are the three core principles.
Okay, and so in addressing these principles,
there's no getting around that in any of the denominations. And that is what the show is about today: is the death of Jesus on the cross.
Okay, right.
Christianity.
But if you're gonna talk about a topic, right? So if you're gonna talk about a topic, you've got to talk about that topic in totality, and not direct your comments around what the Quran says and what what Islam or Muslims believe, because once again the issues stem from Christianity itself. And if you allow me to continue, we'll talk about some other issues.
We'll talk about several different extra biblical sources that say that Jesus did die on a cross, and you're just dismissing them.
No,
not. They don't matter, but
no.
they do matter, because these are people who, I mean, the Jewish Talmud said that Jesus hung on a cross.
Okay.
The Jews who had an axe to grind say this. The Romans who carried it out. The Roman governor.
Okay, so once again,
to the emperor.
Once again,
to the emperor, you're dead.
Once again,
these guys had a dog in the fight.
Yeah. Okay. So once again, your desire to prove that Jesus died on the cross is kind of it's. I understand why you're saying what you're saying, but you're chasing a straw man, because I'm not telling you. Although I don't believe that Jesus died on the cross, that's not what I'm trying to address here today. That's not my objective. What I'm trying to point out to you is that the issue regarding Jesus dying on the cross is not about Islam. And so if you're directing your attack at Islam or at Muslims that believe this way, you need to go to your own sources in totality and investigate and do research on early Christendom and why these early groups that believed these varying things, why they were systematically exterminated by the Roman Church. And that's just the fact of the matter. Okay,
now when you say that they were systematically exterminated by the Roman Church, this Christian doctrine, the canon of the Bible, had already been developed and had been spread clear across the Roman Empire prior to 313 AD, before Constantine even thought about being a Christian. It had already been done.
No, because
to say that
so
Empire went. Hold on a second, please. Let me
sure,
the point here.
sure.
Let me finish the point, please.
Go ahead.
It has already been decided upon all of Christianity throughout the Roman Empire. Constantine, and keep this in mind also, that it spread under immense and intense persecution. They held to these beliefs. So when we see that, people start saying, well, Constantine and the Roman Empire extinguished all these other beliefs, this is not true. This had already been well-established canon and doctrine well before the Romans ever thought about legitimizing Christianity.
Okay, so
it was already a done deal.
So I think you might, not to be offensive, but obviously you might need to look into this a little deeper, because if you're under the impression that the canon was set in stone even before Constantine was born, you're mistaken, because these doctrines continue to develop.
No, I'm not mistaken. This is a popular Islamic argument that it was the Council of Nicaea that made it. It's a popular argument, and it's facetious.
Okay.
And it has no historical basis.
Okay,
so
so one thing that you continue to do is you continue to add things to my comments that I have not said. Okay, so but the fact remains that these doctrines did continue to develop, and that's a historical fact. And these scholars that you mentioned will verify that. Anyone can look into this information. It's very easy to find this information. These doctrines had continued to develop, and things continue even to this day to be changed as the Bibles are continuously manipulated, and things are added and changed and reworded and all these things. So the unfortunate thing is that the canon seems to be adjusting with time. And that might sound rough, but that's just the fact of the matter. And the canon was not set in stone before Constantine. That's not true. That's simply not true. And you can look into that if you'd like to. You don't have to.
Well, let me just ask you this then. Let me ask you this: what historical evidence do you have that postdates the Council of Nicaea, or from the minutes of the Council of Nicaea, that says that they were, well, first off, let's look at the Council. Never mind, we're getting down the beaten path, and that's probably another show.
Yeah, well,
for another time. But the Council of Nicaea, the only thing that they were there to do was just to address the errant heresy that was going on in Alexandria. Yeah. That's the only thing that they met for.
No, that's not.
And they did say that this is the accepted text, and they did say that we are accepting, yes, but by what is taught in church history, because all of the church historians, all the early church fathers attested to the fact that Jesus had died on the cross, attested to the fact that he was the Son of God, that he was God incarnate, and that he rose from the dead. That's all of them.
Yeah. Okay. So
there's nothing there.
So
in the Council of Nicaea that codifies that or puts a stamp of approval on it. Nothing.
Okay. So I encourage you. I'm glad you asked about the dates. I'm going to give you some dates here in a second, but I do encourage anyone who's listening to don't limit yourself to anything that this brother said, and don't limit yourself to anything that I've said. I encourage you to look into these matters on your own in order to find the truth, and you most certainly will. So we're very obviously going to disagree on the development of the Christian canon. I am a student of comparative religion, and I do cover this issue in my book, Consider Islam. And so I don't want to kind of getting off topic here, but and I don't have a whole lot more time to deal with this. But let's talk about a particular gospel, a gospel in particular that has been manhandled and set aside, that will clarify some things. The verdict of the Gospel of Barnabas supports the theory of substitution. And matter of fact, on page 25 of the Gospel of Barnabas, it lists the fact that there were 12 apostles chosen by Jesus, peace and blessing be upon him, and Barnabas is listed as one of those 12. So, yet the Gospel of Barnabas.
Just for your information, information. I just posted in the chat room a link that discuss the gospel of Barnabas.
Okay.
And I find it really fascinating that you would cite the gospel of Barnabas. This is a demonstrable forgery.
Well, that's convenient.
I posted the link in the chat room.
That's convenient.
And, I'm going to put it on my Global Patriot Radio page. Come on now, you cannot say with any sense of integrity that this is a legitimate source to go by. It's an obvious forgery.
Okay, so let me point out something to you. Let me point out something to you. Okay, so let me point something out to you. If Barnabas indeed was one of the 12 disciples mentioned, yet the gospel of Barnabas, who would have been an eyewitness to these events, is not included in the so-called the gospels according to men that exist in the Bible today. It represents the fact that Allah says in the Quran that these scriptures are going to be mishandled, and that men are going to change the verses and add things to the verses. And so we know we have hundreds of thousands of interpolations in the Bible itself. And so I want to point out the fact that it's very easy and convenient to say and discredit, push that gospel to the side when it says something contrary to what the other gospels say. But it's a prime indicator of the fact that the Quran is correct when it says that they're going to change the words of this Bible. They're going to take the original words and they're going to manhandle them, and they're going to add things to them, and they're going to take things away from them, and they're going to try to make these words say what they want them to say. In so many words, you'd have to get into the Quran. We won't talk about that. We'll be talking forever. But so it's convenient. It's convenient. Yeah, let me just make my final point. Let me make my final point. It's very convenient to say Barnabas. Well, that doesn't count. But yet the Gospel of Barnabas does exist, and it actually survived being condemned by 3 successive church decrees: the decree of the Western Church in 382 CE, the decree of Innocent in the first 465 CE, decree of the Council of Gelasius in 496 CE. So the Gospel of Barnabas made it that far, and then somehow it was excluded and done away with. And so Allah knows best as to what all transpired in all these situations. But so once again, my intention for calling in today is I wanted to kind of redirect you, and I was curious as to why you seem to be directing all of your comments towards Islam and attacking the Quran when the issues exist within your own religion, and one of the 34,000 versions of it that you could look into. So it's just unnecessary. I think if you as a Christian and me as a Muslim, what we should do is try to be the best examples and ambassadors of our individual religions, and try to share it in the most beautiful way. The Quran says, once again, to invite to the way of your Lord with wisdom and kind words. And we should engage in debates like this and meaningful and constructive conversation. But I surely would hope that you're not one of those programs that continually attack Islam over and over and over again each week, instead of taking time to share your own religion and doing it in a constructive manner. If you're just strictly attacking Islam, I'd like to ask you why, and what's the purpose behind it? What are you looking to achieve? What do you look to accomplish by doing so? All it does is cause division among people. The Quran tells us that closest to us in love. Hold on. If you're interested. The Quran tells us that the closest to us in love as Muslims are the ones who call themselves Christians, because among them are men devoted to learning and who fear Allah and who are rightly guided. So I sure hope that you're one of those who are willing to share love and be a representative and ambassador of Jesus, peace and blessing be upon him, a true follower of Jesus, and engage people in a manner in which he would, which would be polite and courteous, and to be respectful of all people, and never to oppress people in any degree, be it verbally, emotionally. Yeah, you have no. I'm not saying that you've been disrespectful to me, and I think you've been a gentleman, and but I'm just saying that because based on my interactions with primarily atheists, we should be on the same time talking about and dealing with atheists is what we should be doing. But the fact remains is that there's a lot of people out there that do attack Islam continuously, and it's usually based on very limited knowledge about what they're talking about, and people think that they have more knowledge than they actually do, and so they're basing their opinion and their statements on just that, on very limited information, and that's something that's very unwise.
Okay,
we shouldn't do that.
I just want to address something with you on the line before you go. I just want to address a couple things about, because you cited the Gospel of Barnabas as a refutation of Christianity, or what the Christian beliefs in the early Christian church. And I posted a link in the chat because I thought, well, maybe this is going to come up, because the Gospel of Barnabas essentially says that Jesus did not die on a cross, and it says that Muhammad is a prophet that's coming. But if you also look in the Gospel of Barnabas, and this is how we know it is a forgery, because there's all kinds of reasons, but there's all kinds of factual errors in the Gospel of Barnabas. It has Nazareth right on the Sea of Galilee. Nazareth is more than 30 miles away from the Sea of Galilee. It has Jesus going up to Capernaum. Capernaum is right on the Sea of Galilee. In chapter 151, we're told Jesus embarked on a ship from Nazareth. Nazareth is in the middle of the mountains. You can't get anywhere on a boat in Nazareth. We are further informed a certain dispute would have extended the war. According to the Gospel of Barnabas, Jesus was born when Pilate was governor. Pilate did not become governor until around 17 AD, years after. So, I mean, and there's all kinds of other ones. I mean, this is said 32. That's just 3.
Okay.
We know, not believe, why we know the Gospel of Barnabas is a forgery. And those are just factual errors.
Okay.
That doesn't include where you have casts being used that didn't exist in the Middle East until at least the 9th century.
Okay. Okay.
So there's just all kinds of reasons why we know it's a forgery.
Yeah, I totally respect that, and I want to clarify something, and which is the fact that I'm not a proponent and one who is trying to push the Gospel of Barnabas on anyone. But the unfortunate thing is that in each of those things that you listed, as you're talking, I'm thinking about, the Gospels that we have, the Gospels according to man, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. In each one of those Gospels, we have the same issues. I want to give a prime example.
No, we don't.
Yes, sir, we do. And let me clarify. Let you speak. Just let me clarify my statement. So the story of the adulterous woman, we know that that's a known forgery. That's a fabricated story, but it's one of the most popular, if not the, if not. If not,
it wasn't caught in adultery. I know where you're going with this.
Right. I know you know where I'm going with it.
I get it.
I know you know where I'm going with it.
Because it has nothing to do
See,
with
that's
Jesus dying on a cross. Nobody cares about that.
I noticed that you just said, "Who cares?" Nobody cares about that. No, that's not true. People do care about that, because that's one of the issues when it's one of the most.
Let's put it this way. Let's just put it this way, that you might not be aware of this. Let me just put it this way. In most of the earliest manuscripts, it doesn't appear in the manuscripts until I think it's the earliest one is the 5th century. But with that said, it also appears in the Gospel of Luke, so it's all over the place. It's like a story trying to find a home. But your problem is with this, is that Papias, you know who Papias is? Papias was a contemporary of Polycarp, who was a disciple of John. It is mentioned in Papias' writings. So all it is an attempt by gospel writers to get it into the gospel somewhere. So it did exist. It's just ended up in the Gospel of John. So go ahead and make your point.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you proving my point. When I made when I addressed the fact that the Quran says that the Christians will manhandle the verses of the Quran, they will add things to it, interpolations, they'll add things, take things away, and so. In regards to the story of the adulterous woman, it's one of the, if not the most popular stories of the Bible. Yet it's a fabricated story. It's not supposed to be there.
It's a great story.
Yeah, it is. It's wonderful. It's a very emotional story. It's a very romantic, but it's simply not supposed to be there.
Look at the Passion of the Christ, for crying out loud. It's in the passion of the Christ, for crying out loud.
Right.
Because, like you said, it is a very wonderful story.
Yeah.
But Papias, first century, mentions it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, early second century.
Right, and so that's the point that I'm trying to make, is that there's things within it, along the lines with the Gospel of Barnabas in parallel. There's things that are incorrect. There's many. We can analyze the Bible if you like. I could talk to you about contradictions within the Bible at another date, but there's literally there's so many, they're innumerable. And we could, it's, I don't, no, sir.
33 through 45, we can talk about 66. I mean,
we could go back and forth on it all day. And if you like to,
it's a lot of fun. You have to admit that.
Well, that's what I do. This is what I do. This is what I believe that our God, our Creator, has called me to do. And this is, there's nothing more that I like talking about than sharing the beauty of Islam, the truth of Islam. So if you would like to talk about contradictions in the Bible.
Very well. Let me just put it that way. You do it very well. You're very well spoken. Kenny, I hate to tell you this, but we have to be going. I got to go to church here in a little bit.
Yeah.
And I need to be signing off. And I'll tell you, with all honesty, I do appreciate you calling in, and I do appreciate you being patient with me, and also being courteous.
Yes, sir.
And you do good service by giving good dawah. I don't agree with a lot of it, but we're going to have to just agree to disagree.
Yeah,
tonight.
Absolutely. It's all about sharing with one another, and not creating a situation where we're become enemies with one another. That's foolish. It doesn't benefit anyone, you, me, nor either one of our religions. So I do want to say that all praise is due to Allah. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. I bear witness once again, La ilaha illallah, wa shahadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Bear witness there's no God other than Allah, and that Muhammad is indeed his final servant and the seal of all prophets. Peace and blessing be upon him, and Jesus, and Moses, and Abraham, and Noah, and all the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I've enjoyed the conversation with you, and maybe we can talk again. I did send you a friend request on Facebook after the sister was so adamant about me calling in and speaking with you.
Well, I'm here every Sunday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, and that was one of the things that Stephanie had run into. She didn't know what time to tell you, because is it 4 o'clock there now, or let's see, it's 5:30 here now. Is it 5:30 there?
Oh, if you're in Central Time, I'm in Central Time. So I'm in Houston, in Texas. So right now it's 5:29. Matter of fact, I need to pray here. I need to pray. So, so I guess we're in the same time zone. So that's convenient. And inshallah, God willing, we'll talk again, and and present things from different angles, and ask our God, our Creator, to lead us to the truth. So I'll leave you by saying assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you, brother. Have a good one.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Muted.